Hello, this is Zach, and in this video I'm going to be showing how to use the built-in function scan replace characters using RPG. So here is the IBM documentation for the built-in function, and so it shows the different parameters here that we can use for it. And so the first parameter is going to be the string that we're scanning for, and then the next parameter is going to be what we want to replace it with, and then we have our source next, and we can put a start and a length. So these are the different parameters we can use with it. Then there's a description and then some examples. So the first thing I want to do is create a physical file, create PF. So using create PF, and then I'm going to press F4 and create a file called flat file. And then I'm going to give it a record length of 100. And then I'll press enter. And so we created that in our library. And now I'm going to jump over to VS Code and create a program. And so in this example, I want to show how to scan and replace the delimiter in a record. So the delimiter is basically what is separating our fields in the flat file. So I'll show how we can scan for that and replace it to be something else. So I'm going to call this delim program.rpgle. And I'm going to say this is totally free. And so I'm not going to do any control options, but I will declare the file. And our file's flat file, and then it's a disk. The usage will be input and output. And then we also need to rename the format, the record format, rename flat file. I'll name it flat file R just for record format, and then we'll give it a prefix of F. The prefix could be anything, but so that's the file declaration, and then I'm going to declare a standalone variable, and I'll just call it file data and make it a char of length 100, just like our flat file, and then we'll have the main. And then at the bottom, we want to turn our last record indicator on and return when we end our program. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is just use our variable and set it to a string. And so I'll just fill this with some fake data like first, middle, last, age, birth year, title, description. Could just be some data about describing a person. Okay, so now that we have that, we can scan and replace delimiter. So we'll set the result to our variable file data equals the result of using scan and replace. And so in here I can just scroll down and select it from the options. And then so the first parameter that I want to use is what we're scanning for. So I'm going to be scanning for the comma space. So we'll scan for this comma space in our variable, and then separating that, I'm going to replace it with a bar. So it's going to scan for this, and it'll replace it with the bar. And then we're saying we want to scan our file data. So that's kind of all we need for that. And then once we do that, we'll set it to our flat file is equal to file data. And then once we do that, we'll write to our file, write to the record format. So I'll save this and just double checking there's no spelling mistakes. We'll compile bound RPG program. And the action was successful. Now that we compiled our program, we can call it in green screen. Just to show, I'll do like a run query on this flat file. And you can see that it's empty right now. I guess actually I'll do a debug. So I'll do a start debug our dlim program, and we'll say update prod. Hit enter. And then here I'll just press F10 to step, and then I'll call the program, dlim program. So pressing F10 to step, we get here first, and so if I click on this variable and press F11, I can see the data that's in there, which is our regular list of things. And then if I press F10, now, if I press that again, we can see that it got changed to have our bar as the delimiter instead. So we can see the one on top at the beginning had the commas and spaces, and then it changes to be the bars. So that's basically it scanning for and replacing that character. And then I'll write it to this file, and then the program ends. So if we run our command again, we can see it filled it with that string of characters. So that's how that built-in function gets used. I can also show another example where we read a file and then use the built-in function to change all these once they're already existing in the file. So what I'll do is I'll create another physical file, and I'll call it out file. Also give it length of 100, and we'll go back into here. And what I'll do is comment out what we've done so far. Oh, actually, what I want to do is call this a couple times just to fill it with data. And now, if we look again, it's got 6 records in there. So now we're going to read all 6 of these records, change the delimiter, and write it to a different file, our out file that we just created. So I'm going to comment this out. We're going to start below it. So for this, I'm going to declare our new file. I'm just going to copy this one and use it as a template. It was out file, so I'm going to say out, and then we'll change this to O instead of F. So that should be good. And then now I'm going to do the set lower limit and then to the start of our flat file because we're going to read from it. And we want to start at the beginning, the first record. So we'll do that, and then we'll do a priming read of this flat file before we do a do while loop. Do while not, and then this is a built-in function and a file, and we'll specify the flat file. So this is also using another built-in function and do. And then all I want to do is grab our file data, set it to, or I'm just going to use this variable and set it to what we've read from our file, which is the FF flat file. And then what we'll do from there, once we have that in our file data, is we'll use our scan replace again. But this time we have a bar here, so we're going to be scanning for the bar, and we'll replace it with dashes. And we still have our file data is what we're using. And then after we do that, we'll set it to the out file. Out file equals file data. And then write to out file to the record format. And then after we do that, we want to read from our flat file again. And then if it reads this and it's the end of the file, it will exit the loop and end the program. So that is we're setting the position to the beginning of our flat file, reading it, and then we're looping through it while there's still records until we reach the end of it. And then we are taking the data we read from, setting it into our variable, using the built-in function to change the delimiter, setting that value to the out file and writing to it. And then we read the next record in our flat file. And then we loop through that until we reach the end of our flat file, and then we exit. So I'm going to, did we compile this? Oop, it doesn't like that. Oh, I just have a spelling mistake here. So I'll resave that, and then we'll recompile. Bound. And then I'll put this in debug again and show it. Well, actually, I'll just run it so that this video doesn't get too long. I'll just call, what is this, delim program. So I'm just going to call it. And then what we can do is do a run query and show the flat file. So this is our original file that has the delimiter of a bar in all of them. And if we bring that back up with F9 and do out file, we see that it changed all the delimiters to be that space. And we read through all of them. We have 6 records. And so yeah, that's how you can use the scan and replace characters. And then I also kind of showed how to use the end of file built-in function, but very briefly. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to show, how to change the delimiter with the scan and replace, and then how you can read through a file and change all the records on a file. Okay, sweet.